y'all, welcome to Robin on the Farm. Today I'm going to show you how to make a 1.5 pound loaf of home-style white bread using my small Zojirushi bread machine. Now the reason I'm going to do this is because I recently showed you how to make a 1 pound loaf using this bread machine, but someone requested that I show you how to make a 1.5 pound loaf using the same vertical style bread machine. Now on my website I have the printable recipes for all of my recipes, and I always show you how to make a 2 pound loaf, a 1.5 pound loaf, and a 1 pound loaf. So if you want to print this off, it's on my website, robinonthefarm.com. To get started on this 1.5 pound loaf of bread made in a vertical bread machine, I'm going to start with 1 cup of lukewarm water. You want this to be about 100 to 110 degrees. I'm going to just throw it right on into my bread machine loaf pan. Please excuse my ugly old Zojirushi loaf pan. I've had this thing for so many years, and it has been used and abused, but I love it. These Zojirushis last forever. If you have one, let me know how long you've had yours. Next, we want 3 tablespoons of melted butter. I have my really cool little Lodge melting pot right here. I just melted 3 tablespoons of butter. I'm just gonna pour it right on into the loaf pan with the water. And next we want 2 tablespoons of honey or sugar. Now, I'm just using sugar. I do like using honey a little bit more, but sugar is so much easier to work with, to bake with. So I'm gonna use 2 tablespoons of sugar. Now, if you don't want to use this much sugar, you can cut it down a little bit, or you can use honey, stevia, monk fruit, maple syrup, anything that you wanna use. And next we want some flour. So for this recipe, I'm going to use some plain all-purpose flour, but you can definitely use bread flour. I do like bread flour a little bit more, just because you get that better rise, better chew, different texture, but all-purpose flour is just fine in this bread. So you want 3 cups of flour. And you know what? Last time I checked, the all-purpose flour was a lot cheaper than the bread flour, so all-purpose will work just fine. Next, I'm gonna add some dry milk powder to my bread. I love using dry milk powder in my breads. You'll get a softer, fluffier bread in any baked good that you add dry milk to, even more so than if you used regular milk. So I love this stuff. I keep a ton in my food storage just for emergencies, but I definitely use it most for my bread baking. So for this recipe, I'm gonna use 2 tablespoons of dry milk powder. So 2 tablespoons right on in there with everything else. And next we want some salt. You can use some regular old white table salt if you want. I really love this Redmond's Real Salt. So you can use this kind of salt, white iodized table salt, kosher salt, pink Himalayan sea salt, whatever you want. But I'm gonna use 1.5 teaspoons of this salt, and I'm definitely gonna pour it not over my bread machine loaf pan, just in case I over pour. Can you see the color of this? It's a really pretty pink color. So I'm going to put that on in there, 1.5 teaspoons. Okay. And we're already to the last ingredient. This is my Saf instant yeast. You can use any kind of yeast that you want. You can use instant yeast, rapid rise, active dry. Any kind of yeast will work just fine in this recipe, but you want 1.5 teaspoons of yeast. Now, I keep my yeast in the freezer, and I get it out right before I make bread, and I put it right back in the freezer when I'm done. It's way cheaper to buy your yeast in these 1 and 2 pound packages than in those little packets or those little jars from the grocery store. So definitely check these out. Keep it in the freezer and it's gonna last forever. And those are already all of our ingredients. I'm gonna go ahead and pop this into my bread machine. So I'm just gonna throw this in my bread machine, close it up, and I'm gonna choose just a basic white cycle, and I like light crust, so I always choose a light crust. Then I'm gonna just press start, and there we go. You can hear it starting to already mix and knead. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give this just about 3 to 5 minutes to mix up, and then I'm gonna check on my ball of dough and see if it needs any adjusting. So I'll show you exactly what it should look like in just a few minutes. It's been just a few minutes since I started my bread machine, but I like to come in with a rubber spatula and get all those extra ingredients that are kind of stuck to the sides. I like to help those get incorporated into my ball of dough. Now this ball of dough is looking great, look at that. It doesn't look too dry or too wet. If it looked too wet, then it'd be sticking to the sides and to the bottom and not coming into a nice ball of dough. And if it was too dry, it would look really dry and crumbly. and it wouldn't be coming into this nice ball either. So it's only been about 3 minutes, but I'm gonna give this more time. It's gonna get even smoother and look even better. But this ball of dough looks great. This is the most important part of using your bread machine. It's not so much about exact measurements. It's more about watching your ball of dough and assessing if it needs a little bit more flour or a little bit more water. This one is exactly right. So I'm gonna go ahead and shut my door of my bread machine, and in a few hours, I'm gonna have a glorious loaf of bread. I'll show it to you then. All right, the 1.5 pound size loaf is done. It's time to go ahead and get it out of the bread machine and take it out of the loaf pan. Here is our bread still in the loaf pan. This is a 1.5 pound loaf size, so it comes nearly to the top. If you make a 1 pound loaf, it'll come about to here. So let's go ahead and turn it out of the loaf pan. Oh, this looks so good. And let me tell you, it smells so good too. So let's check it out. It has a really pretty crust color. I always like to do the light colored crust. I just like it better like that. But you can definitely do a medium or a dark crust if you like that better. You can see the paddle mark on the bottom. That doesn't bother me at all. I really don't mind that at all. But this looks great. Now, a lot of people will treat this like the top and they'll slice their bread like this in these vertical loaves. But really, I think the better thing to do is to turn it on its side like this and slice it like this, and it'll just give you more standard size slices of bread, which I think is better. So this is what I'm gonna do. I always melt a little bit of butter in my cast iron melting pot, and I like to just rub this butter all over the crust. That'll give you a really yummy, buttery flavored bread, and I really like that. It'll also give you a softer crust, which I also like, and it'll give you that pretty shine too. So I'm just gonna take a second to kind of brush this on. Oh, this bread is gonna be fantastic. And then if you like, you can put your bread on a cooling rack to cool for a little bit. But I don't really like doing that. I like taking a tea towel or just a plain old kitchen towel, and I like to wrap my bread in it. And that warmth and the condensation will give you a nicer, softer crust all the way around. I never let my bread cool all the way. I don't have the patience for that. So I'm gonna let this just cool for a few minutes, and then I'm gonna cut into it and we'll check out the inside. All right, it's been a few minutes, and I'm gonna go ahead and cut into this beautiful loaf of home-style white bread. Now, if you want the very best crumb and texture and easiest slicing from your bread, then you let it cool all the way. But if you want to enjoy it nice and warm, then go ahead and cut into it and have yourself a slice, especially with some butter, some preserves. Oh, what a treat. Look how good this slice looks. Look at this beautiful crumb and texture. It's so soft and so fluffy. Oh, look how fantastic this loaf is. This is perfect for sandwiches, just for a good old snack. If you want to have some toast with breakfast, if you want to make some French toast, I mean, this is just a good all-purpose loaf of bread right here. I'll leave the link for the printable recipe for this home-style white bread down in the description, and a link to our homemade beeswax bread bags if you're looking for a good alternative to plastic. Thanks so much for being here with me on Robin on the Farm. I'll see you next time.
Robin's in the kitchen, dough beneath her hands, wheat from the fields and eggs from her land. Sunlight through the window, a warm golden glow. She's working hard to make that